Donna Schwartz here from the Everything Saxophone Podcast. I'm so happy I've got Nick May as the special guest for the show today. I'm really happy to have him here. I've been following him. He's an amazing, amazing saxophone player, amazing classical player. I was listening to a clip of the Tyler Harrison Soprano Saxophone Concerto. We're going to listen to that on the show a little bit too. Oh my God, you've got to hear his sound and his technique. I'm embarrassing right now. That's good. It's a good thing. It's always good. Hey, Nick, welcome to the
show. Oh my God, no, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun. We were laughing quite a bit. We were I'm going to say it. We were checking the mics and he said, check. Oh, I had cereal this morning. I was like, oh, okay. I almost had my Canalita Crunch this morning too.
Healthy balanced diet of Cheerios a day, makes the saxophone play. I don't know.
No, there you go. Yeah, see, Catalina Crunch with Cheerios. That's what I kind of do sometimes. So cool. All right. Well, listen. So I want people to get to know you. So let's start from the beginning. So where did you grow up, and when did you start playing a musical instrument? Because it may not have been saxophone. I'm not even aware.
Well, do we count recorder as a musical instrument or as a tool of violence?
I used to teach in elementary school, and they had me teaching the third grade, and with recorder. And what I would do, I'd have all the kids. I'd teach them by ear. Everything's by ear. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the first songs would be Hot Cross Buns. And I'd make them play it over and over again. And I have to go into the classrooms for the teachers. So I would joke around and I'd say, kids, just keep playing. Just keep playing. They'd play it like 27 times. I'm waiting for the teacher to make some kind of response, because she's just like sitting there and stuff.
Yeah. Technically I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we did recorder in 4th grade. And we got our little black belts for each song we, cross stuff. So, so it could count as violence, I don't know, but luckily that's tucked away. But so formally started saxophone in 5th grade.
Okay.
And that was basically just because, when you start band, they do the instrument petting zoo. What instruments you want to try, on band night, check your 3, go around the different tables, check them out, see what you like. And originally I wanted to actually play trumpet. Trumpet was number 1. French horn was 2nd, and then saxophone was kind of the default 3rd choice.
Interesting.
And fun fact, I couldn't buzz and still can't. And so they just dumped me on saxophone because they're like, well, anyone can play saxophone. And so here we are. So there's no romantic, fun, kind of, grew up to listening to albums. None of that happened. It was just kind of pure chance at that point, honestly.
Now, this is interesting because my first thought, first of all, I grew up playing trumpet. I still play trumpet. And I would have thought, as a band director, oh, this kid wants to play French horn? Great. But you said you couldn't buzz, so that's interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to, they were like, well, you could try trombone or tuba. I was like, I don't want to do that. So they were like, okay, well, here's a saxophone. Good luck.
Okay, because a lot of times they try to sway the kids away from saxophone because everybody wants to play sax.
Yeah. No, honestly, there wasn't, I think I remember Lord, that's been decades ago. But yeah, no, there was only 4 or 5 of us. It was a pretty small school.
Okay.
So, it was actually a pretty balanced band, all things considered. There wasn't 30 saxophones. There was maybe 5 flutes, maybe 3 or 4 clarinets. It was, all things considered, actually pretty balanced.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah, well, especially only 3 clarinets, though. You normally want 10 or 12.
Yeah. But we made it work. But so, I joined it, with all my friends, and at that point it was just more of kind of a social activity, just all the friends are doing it. It's fun. Full disclosure, I was completely awful. Could not read music for probably the first 3 or 4 years. Couldn't read music. I basically did the thing where instead of we all know G is the second line on the staff, right? Yeah. I didn't know that note was G. All I knew was 1, 2, 3 was G.
Oh, okay.
And so I would just write 3 above it, and I just knew that note as 3, not G, if that makes sense. So I had to mark music like that in a way, and it was, I don't know, it's just kind of fascinating, kind of how almost the backwards approach, how I ended up kind of learning music and notes, because it's almost where I'm at now. If you know the Suzuki method and that kind of stuff, that's actually a lot closer to kind of how they start beginners with just this is your finger number, this is your position, and then put the notes to it.
Okay, so yeah, let's dive into this. I'm
Yeah.
more familiar with music learning theory, which is essentially you learn by
Okay.
ear first and then eyes. So, okay, did your teacher teach you by ear first?
No,
Was it
I mean,
no?
I just played. I just played. You know, I don't want to say play stupid, but I just played along with everyone, pretending like, oh, yep, I knew exactly what everyone was talking about, and so I knew, okay, we're starting on measure three of hot cross buns, the remix, and I just knew that I started on whatever these notes were, and in a way, I mean, I've never actually thought about this until now, but I guess I kind of learned by ear in a sense. I never really did it on purpose, but I would always have to hear it first, and then I could play it, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And
That's
so I
the way
would
we
always
should learn.
ask. So I always asked for like the either the like online record or I guess CD recording because it was, you know, at that time in the age where we had CD recordings of our pieces,
Yep.
or at that point, smart music was like just coming out, and so like we could actually play along with it sometimes.
Okay, yep. I remember those days.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how I guess I learned, or I guess got started on music, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
here's the thing too. I grew up, the generation or two before you. Like I grew up in the Generation X, right? So, late 70s, early 80s, or late 70s into the 80s. And there were no recordings. We had the Breeze Easy books and stuff, and then the Rubanks and no recordings, which sucks because, excuse me, which, is not the
Yeah.
best thing because, it's you're training your eyeballs, you're not training your ears. So when smart music came out, that was a big deal. And that was
Wow.
a great resource for teachers, but I think more so for the kids, more so for students, really of any age, because the thing is that you want to hear what it's supposed to sound like.
Well, and like that was also unique. I'll just out myself. Like I was the millennial age where we had Guitar Hero and all that stuff, where we were very much trained to like follow like the cursor.
Oh, okay,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So like with Guitar Hero, like you would follow like the cursor as it goes, same thing. And so like with smart music, it would have like the cursor follow the music like on how people do like the fancy YouTube videos now, but
Yeah.
they would have that for like the beginner. What was it? Standard of excellence is what I grew up on. Like for all of those, like you would have like the little cursor with it to kind of help read.
Yeah. I mean, that's why like stuff like a lot of people like iReal Pro. There's no notes in there, but it's the chords, but people are following the
And it
cursor.
highlights it, and it's easier to follow than just good luck.
Yeah. Okay, so this is interesting. So, all right, but you're saying, like for the first 3 years, you definitely needed the ear, thing first, and you were just kind of, it was more memorized fingerings. You were like, it's not a G, it's three fingers down.
Yeah.
However way that you needed to do that. When what made the flip? Like when did you start getting a little more serious about playing?
I mean, there was kind of two different kind of sides to that. I mean, the first one was, I mean, we all know kind of the strong personalities that kind of develop in like middle school and high school, right? And so the most PG version of this is the long story short is obviously I was last chair. Like I even got demoted from alto saxophone to tenor saxophone because we just needed more translation and tenor saxophone parts in middle school, high school band are significantly easier, right?
Yeah.
But so long story short, I was last chair in the bottom band, and it was like solo ensemble season, solo contest, everyone does like their solo. And so where I went, and I actually respect this and agree with it a lot, everyone had to do a solo. It didn't matter if you wanted to or not, like everyone, it's about like the preparation and like, the journey and, just working on something substantial. So even if it was like, the cute, Rubank Book One solos with piano, very first one where it's just, quarter notes, half notes, everyone had to do a solo.
Got it.
So, long story short, there was a strong personality who was the first chair alto saxophonist, shocker, right? Um, and we butted heads for a few different reasons, but there was, when we were doing like solo ensemble time of like, okay, who's signing up, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, well, I'm signing up with, I don't know, whatever the solo was in the tenor saxophone and piano book. I don't remember. And I remember distinctly them saying, well, why are you doing that? It's not like you're going to, like, why are you wasting your time? Because you're just going to get, like, the participation trophy or whatnot. Like, why are you wasting your time?
Well,
And that, I don't know if it was just me at that time. Again, we're all going through puberty and we all, have heightened, emotions and all that kind of stuff. But at that point, that just like kind of changed like a fire, or like lit a fire. I'm like, okay, yes, I know I'm awful. Yes, I know I can't read. Yes, I know like all this stuff. You don't tell me I can't. Like, yes, I know I'm probably gonna get a participation trophy or whatever, and then we'll just go and eat, candy on the bus ride home, whatever. But like, you're not gonna be the one that tells me that I'm gonna fail. I get to tell me that I fail, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I did this weird thing called practicing, and then shocker, I got a 1.
That's awesome.
But I mean, seriously, that was like the first time I actually practiced, or I don't want to say tried, but because it's not like I didn't try in the past, but like the first time I actually had like any sort of motivation to try, if that makes sense. And then obviously, kind of the cycle kind of started of, oh, it's kind of nice when you can actually, understand what's going on, and oh, you actually get to understand what's going on, and then you get to enjoy it more, and then you have more fun, and then like that cycle started kind of, that's when that cycle kind of started, if that makes sense.
So what you just said is actually a great lesson for any player of any age, right? Because here's the thing: before, it was a social thing. You were playing,
Yeah.
okay, and just the fact that you hung in there, even though you were like, as you said, demoted and that kind of. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, he's still staying in there. There must
And
have
there's
been
no,
something.
well, and also there's nothing wrong with it being a social activity. Like there's,
Yeah.
like it doesn't. You don't have to be the biggest, baddest. Like if you're enjoying it and you're having fun, that's enough reason in itself.
Were you? Were you enjoying
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, oh yeah. Like all my friends were there. Like we would like that was my complete friend circle.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the thing, though, what really sparked it was that, it was almost like a challenge in a sense. It's like, oh, you can't do that. And then you had the wherewithal to say, no, you know what? I'm going to decide that. And then you found the intrinsic motivation when you think about it, you know? You didn't need someone else to do a tap
Yeah.
dance for you, right? You did
Yeah.
you did it yourself. And then what happened, right? You got the one, but then how did your life change after that?
Yeah. I mean, then I started taking lessons. Like I did lessons on and off a few times, like in the summers, because we were recommended to do that. But then I actually started actually wanting to do them and take them seriously, if that makes sense. And then eventually then going down the rabbit hole of Marcel Mule's greatest hits and the French Conservatory and Raj, just deep diving headfirst into everything saxophone, and actually kind of falling in love with the instrument. And, in high school, at that point, like that's probably like 4 years later, at that point, like I knew I wanted, music was obviously going to be a part of my life no matter what, whatever career path, like there was always going to be a strong aspect of music in life. But then, I think kind of the ultimate, everyone kind of talks about like their, like that, like the, the one moment in their life that actually made them like, that actually changed their life or changed their chemistry or something.
Yeah.
In high school, I was, obviously doing rather well. I was going to probably do music in some capacity in college. At that point, I was actually wanted to go into anesthesiology because after career day, I found whatever career made the most dollar signs. I was like, I'll be very happy with that, and that can also help me buy whatever saxophones I want, and I can just have the, endowed collection of whatever, and you know what? I'll be happy with that because who cares, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's the mind of a 15-year-old. What do you expect, right?
Well, it's a mind of a lot of people actually. So I
But
get it.
But so I remember, it was probably my junior year, I think. Our band director, he was in the Lincoln Symphony. He was principal trombone in the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra for like 30 years or something. And so after band class one day, he just kind of said to the whole band, by the way, the symphony rehearses in our high school. We obviously like give them the space, and so tonight they're doing like their dress rehearsal for their concert tomorrow, whatever, this weekend. If you're all free, you're more than welcome to sit, just sit on the band wall, listen, do your homework, have a nice kind of evening with that, and maybe you'll learn something. Like that, and I mean, Terry was kind of that old school generation of band directors where, it's a very much him saying like you might learn something is very much underscored, a very passive like you're gonna learn something. This is, kind of that kind of test. You know what I mean? Like,
Got it. Okay.
who shows up to and wants to learn, right?
Yeah.
And so, the group of friends, like we all showed up. We were gonna go play Mario Kart afterwards. But I remember, I was I brought my homework because I was like, I'll just do this and relax and, have, what did a 15-year-old from Nebraska know about orchestral music? Not much, right? But, we're just going to have a nice relaxing, they'll play like movie music or something. No. Like I remember literally sitting less than 5 feet away from the front of the orchestra. It was a full like they filled the entire room. I've never seen the room filled that much. And they tune, do all the, do the, here's the announcements, all that fun stuff. And then just without any words, they just played Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony, start to finish. That's the first time I've heard anything on that level of, any level of art, like music that is that level of art, if that makes sense. 5 feet away, and within, like, I'd still get goosebumps every minute, like every time I remember this.
Yeah, wow.
I was just like so captivated by just, I don't even know what I was hearing, or just like, what is this? What is happening? What's going on? And like from then it was like, that's when like the actual obsession kind of began. I was like, no, this is whatever just happened, whatever this was. I want to be a part of this, and I can't not follow this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, Tchaikovsky is so. I hate to use the word accessible, but I am going to, because I don't. Who doesn't like Tchaikovsky?
No, yeah, exactly.
Who doesn't feel something from Tchaikovsky?
But I mean, everyone always hears, they always know the Nutcracker 1812, and like those are beautiful, and they are. I think that they are more accessible than like the full, like a 50-minute symphony. But going from one of the, from hearing, the Sugar Plum Fairies or whatever to the full Fifth Symphony out of no context, that is a wall of sound, and like, the first fortissimo they hit, you literally feel like the air molecules, the actual sound hit your body, and, let alone 5 feet away, there's nothing like it. Whether it's that or like a jazz band set, or, that's the high kind of, all musicians kind of talk about when you feel the music, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When I was growing up in New York, we called it Saratoga, but it was New York State Summer School for the Arts, and it was held in Saratoga, and so it was, at the time, it was a mostly orchestral program, and the Philadelphia Orchestra was the orchestra in residence.
Wow.
So we would get lessons from them. So I was playing trumpet, and our pieces that we worked on, the main piece was Tchaikovsky's Fourth. And with the French ones, I'm probably off by a half step, but and then the trumpets come in, it's just your hair stands up, when you play that, and it's just and yeah, that I think the third movement, or
the fourth. Well, and when it returns, like on the fourth movement, that final climax, that is one of those, like, I remember the first time I heard that, and that is just,
it's breathtaking.
And then some, like, you see into a different universe or something. I don't know,
Yeah, and I know for me, I guess because in being a brass player, like, I like Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Strauss. Then you get into, some of the 20th century works and stuff like that. But as a saxophone player, now this is interesting too, because there's not much for saxophone unless you start with Ravel, right? And then, some after that, So even though Tchaikovsky didn't have saxophone, you still were impacted by this.
Yeah, and that was the first thing that kind of got me chasing that whole, I mean, just even learning that repertoire, even though I know I'll never play it. And I know that's very nihilistic, and, that's kind of dark real fast, but I know I'm never going to play Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony on saxophone, because that's, sure, there might be an ensemble that does it, but it's, you know what I mean, I'll never play that with the New York Phil.
Right, yeah.
And that's just a fact of life. you know.
Yeah, but still
Um,
the enjoyment and just that
mhm,
so that was one moment that absolutely changed her life. And
mhm.
and listen, everybody asks this, right? So I might as well. But wait a minute, you play saxophone. What about jazz?
Well, I do always. I mean, I've always had done jazz, and always did play, in jazz bands and ensembles. That kind of that's a loaded question in itself. I mean, I've recorded in jazz albums and in big bands and whatnot. I didn't get a minor in it, but I did all the basically jazz minor stuff in my masters. I've played the Monterey Festival.
Oh, cool.
But this might kind of, how do I word this? Might kind of segue into kind of talking about like the I Exist project and stuff I'm working on now.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons why I don't really, for lack of a better term, monetize performing jazz or whatever, or pursue it or whatever you want to call that, is it doesn't really. There's never until what I've learned recently through the project. There's never really been an emotional pull for me to it. It's
Okay.
always been more of a social activity, which is obviously like that's obviously deep in its roots, but there's never been a deeper meaning or message for me, which never really pulled me in deeper. And this might be giving away a little bit too much on the about the I Exist project or whatnot, which I'll just give it away for listeners. It's an initiative that I started that fosters queer culture and creativity through contemporary repertoire, and so I've done a lot of commissioning and work and advocacy for both queer music, but also queer rights through music. Um, and I
Classical,
guess
mostly classical music though, right?
oh,
Okay.
but it's also cross genre where it's classical music is just a giant umbrella where there are jazz, very heavily jazz influenced pieces. There are the avant garde stuff. There's it is very representative of both music and also just queer identity in itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but one of the kind of major things that I'll be honest, kind of annoyed me and actually I was pretty upset about. Also full shocker, like obviously I'm gay, openly out gay, but
Yeah.
um, the fact that when I started the project 4 years ago, that was probably about 4 or 5 years out of my master's, right out of COVID.
Okay.
You're telling me that a kid who grew up playing in all the jazz ensembles, high school, middle school, undergrad, grad school, did, all the theory, all the tritone substitutions, all the blah, 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 blah. Had someone told me, even at one point, oh, by the way, the jazz's most iconic writer, bar none, Billy Strayhorn, was gay and actually open and out and was like in high society New York, and like if you actually listen to the lyrics of his songs, they're actually pretty queer coded, like pretty heavily. You think if that would have been mentioned once in my life, that would have actually changed my entire trajectory, and I might be doing this in a jazz idiom.
Interesting. Even though, okay, so even though, because I can understand this,
Yeah.
as a musician, like a lot of people think, oh, musicians, you like to play everything. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
We will play everything, but some things, the way you put it, some things give you more of an emotional pull, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like I'm going to be honest, there's like the older classical music, like
Mm-hmm.
Mozart and Haydn, and except
Mm-hmm.
for the Haydn trumpet concerto and stuff. But,
That's
'cause
a different kind of emotional pull. That's more of an emotional response, not a.
it's exactly what. Yeah, no, for sure. But it's for me, it's more like the romantic period.
Mm-hmm.
That I love. In terms of classical music, that draws me in. The other stuff, yeah, okay, I can appreciate it. Doesn't really draw me in, so I can understand that. But
Mm-hmm.
even saying, like if someone would have
Yeah.
given you that seed, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, at an earlier
Who
age.
knows? Who knows what would have grown? I'm sure it'd be something similar, but I'd be doing something similar but different. I don't know.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
You know that now. Why not, be like, there's a lot of people that play classical and jazz, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Why not do that now that you've had that pull, if anything?
I mean, I would. Be truthfully honest. I would love to. It's also just comes down to at this point, time. I mean, there's so much. There's a finite amount of time in the world, in a day. And so, yeah, I'd love to practice. Oh my God, I would love to practice jazz for 4 hours a day. To have lunch, go on a walk, read, write some poetry, and then practice classical stuff later in the afternoon, and then settle down on a nice fire. But I don't know anyone who has that amount of luxury or time, and like the amount of just life and adulting that needs to happen. You know what I mean? Just the amount of like back end stuff. Like there's just not time.
Yeah.
To do it at the high, like to do it at the level that I would want to do it.
Got it. Yeah. No, I get it.
And like I know this that sounds really depressing, but at the same time, it's like it's just it's
it's life. It's real.
It's real. It's reality. It's life, and it's a fact of life. You have to, like even as independent artists and whatnot, like there is so much that goes on. Like you're lucky if you get an hour to practice.
Exactly. I was saying this to somebody the other day. It's like I'm trying to grab my horn 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. There's so much that needs to be done that they don't teach you in school. About business, about promoting yourself, about trying to find gigs, trying to find, and you have these other things going on too, but it's all this stuff going on. So, yeah.
I mean, if I had nothing but free time, then absolutely, full steam ahead. But it's life.
It makes you pine for the college days when we're stressed out about tests and stuff like that. And it's like, I've got to practice 8 hours and then you get out and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even practice an hour.
I have 8 minutes. What are you going to do with 8 minutes? Good luck. And there are days where it's like, I have a 10-minute window. What can I accomplish?
Yeah. One long tone.
Yes. Yeah.
That's essentially it. But then talk to me. Yeah, let's go down this road with the I Exist project, right? So, tell us more about what it's about. Like, is it like a foundation, something you started? Talk to me about this.
I mean, so it's not a foundation or institution yet. Big asterisk. We'll come back to that later.
Okay.
But I mean, ultimately, the project, is deeply rooted in promoting queer culture and music, specifically classical music, and being a catalyst for the creation of that, and actually promoting it like through performances and community outreaches and just all over the country, and actually at this point, fingers crossed, world, and kind of going back to like the kind of the identity or emotional response kind of bubble topic, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, it came out of, no pun intended. I know I had to. I'm sorry. Growing up. I mean, this kind of ties actually back into like the business, real life kind of full circle. In school or as you're growing up in your like artistic identity, or founding it or developing it, however you want to word that. We all know classical saxophone, and for those who don't, we all apologize if they don't know, or you know what I mean. We apologize if they do know it, because there's a lot where it gets bigger, badder, faster, louder, and I'm also part of that at some points. But the repertoire. If we talk about like the Crestons and the E-Bears and the Albright sonatas and all that kind of stuff, they're great. They're masterworks. But again, there always felt like for me, like there was always some sort of like divide, if that makes sense. Like, sure, I'll study the music, I'll perform it well, and yes, we can kind of hyperimpose our own personal interpretations and, on the second movement, what's your story? It's true love or, something like that, right? But there was always like an aspect of reality missing, if that makes sense.
No, what do you mean?
Well, I'll get there now. So all the pieces on the I Exist project, they are based on real life experiences and narratives within the queer community. So for example, one of the pieces we're performing and touring with Silence Equals Death, Silence Still Equals Death by Nathan Froby, originally started out as an outcry against the lack of response from the administration in the 1980s to the HIV/AIDS crisis in the United States, and has now outcry against, luckily we're at a point where it's not the death sentence it was, thanks to science and research and everything, but it's still an outcry against, the horrible things going on in this country with, things like ICE and even still the dehumanization of queer people. Like, that is real, and there is no, you know what I mean? Like, that, it is so real that there is no, it hits on a different level.
Yeah, yeah.
And so all the pieces, my collaborative pianist Alex and I, we make a kind of a running joke that it's the trauma bonding recital, because it's buckle up, you're about to go through an emotional journey, because we're going to talk about, pre-1920 Nazi Germany, how, when Proposition, I think it was 198, was one of the first bills that made being queer illegal and like punishable by prison and death in some cases. And yes, there's moments of celebrating, but the history and the amount of history that's been just not even taught, even in public schools, let alone musically, it's insane, honestly. And so, kind of going back to like the creation of the project, it honestly started off when I started actually kind of leaning into, whether by coincidence or fate or whatever you want to call it, I ended up kind of doing two or three like commission pieces like back to back that were kind of like based on activism.
Okay.
One of them was like a pride flag suite. The other one was about like kind of relationships that ended up being actually the title of UMES for the album we were talking about earlier. And then I made this Facebook post saying, if anyone wants to collaborate on this, why can we not make queer music a thing and actually lean into it, not just the, Tchaikovsky is our token rainbow composer for June. It's, no, let's actually do this. Let's actually advocate and actually tell stories. And so that was kind of the inspiration for that, along with, as far as like from a business, just art side to this day, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is no artistic arts entity in the United States that actually has funding or opportunity for queer specific music. There's grants and whatnot for, for so many marginalized communities, and obviously diversity is or was part of grants. I don't know, that gets messy and we're not diving into, you know what I mean, right?
Oh yeah.
But, we have Sphinx, which is amazing. We have all these different institutions, but yet there was never one for queer specific music. There's queer dance, there's queer film and multimedia art, but again, music was left out. And so, kind of the end goal, if the light at the end of the tunnel, or one of the lights, I don't know, is, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20, who knows, is it actually becoming its own foundation where it actually is like New Music USA, or the something like that for queer music, where it actually can help fund and promote, advocate for queer music that is not just for people around the country.
Yeah, no, this is, first of all, this is great. This is an amazing goal, and it's an amazing goal because
and daunting.
Well, of course, but
yeah.
You know what? But then that means it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then that means it has to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so now, since starting the project 4 years ago,
mm-hmm.
right? So you've commissioned a bunch of works.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're finding, are you getting more and more?
Yeah, well, the original kind of push, I'll be the first one to admit it, I was absolutely insane. I think I agreed to, like, when I made that Facebook post asking if anyone wanted to collaborate, I think I got 20 to 25, like, people saying, people that I call friends and colleagues across the country saying, yes, I want to be a part of this. And where I was at the time, because it was post-COVID, we were all kind of just re-emerging and just trying to figure out what life even looked like, on the other side.
Yeah.
I was at a point where I didn't want to be the reason I said no, if that makes sense, in the creation of this music.
Okay.
So yes, I know, like, all the forces of, let's all be honest, it costs money to make the roll go round for commissions and all the stuff. But, where there's a will, there's a way, and that's kind of one of my, like, driving kind of mantras. That, and with enough caffeine, anything is possible. But I didn't want to be the reason it, someone wanted to genuinely collaborate, and I still kind of stand to this. If we want to genuinely collaborate, I don't want, the, capitalistic hellscape stuff to be a reason that it doesn't happen. There's always a way, and there's always, it's going to be a lot of work to make it happen. But, I believed in everything so much. I was like, I will make it happen. I don't know how, and there's so many reasons that should say like it shouldn't happen, but here we are.
Yeah.
And so now it's actually kind of evolved into a point where, yes, sometimes I, approach people about specific ideas or, about specific collaborations, but at this point, it's kind of becoming this kind of beautiful, almost underground kind of movement where, kind of same thing with like early queer culture. It's actually kind of starting to spread like underneath, and it's, a friend of a friend, I'm probably get a referral from friends and colleagues now that they're now referring me to new friends and colleagues and growing the circle that way. And I think that's, the most organic and most natural way to do something like that.
Yeah, because you know what? This is going to be a weird analogy, but the way that Taylor Swift became famous was because after her early concerts, after every single one, and I knew her first manager, Rick Barker, and after every concert, she'd go out and greet every single fan and sign every single autograph. And she did that, for as long as she possibly could. And now look at her, right? And so, it's that the power of connection, the power of community.
Underline, underscored, bolds, repeat. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, because here's the thing, I could see, I can definitely see where this can be, some kind of foundation in the future, and where young composers, as they're coming up down the pike, will have something to look forward to,
I mean, and, I've been fortunate to do an Emerging Composer Award a couple times, but it's just not something I can do consistently every year. But it's, the title track of the album UMS White Sox was written at the time by Sebastian Jang, who I believe they were a junior, going into their junior year at UT in composition when they wrote White Sox. And it's incredible. And they were one of the first winners of the Emerging Award the first year. And they're now doing their masters, I think, at Peabody, and it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just beautiful being a part of that journey and actually, watching them start from, where they were, and then that's only the beginning for them.
Yeah, but also, I'm just thinking too, you're leaving your stamp, you're leaving a legacy. You'll see as this develops. You'll see you're leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, I was composing music also, and I went to Tanglewood as it was the first year of the young composers. And so there were 11 of us and people from all over the world. And it was really cool. It was just really cool to be around other people that were composing, Yeah. And I would have gotten in, it's interesting, I had contacted the Tanglewood Institute, Dr. Robert Sirota, a few years before then. He actually wanted me to come down one summer, at least for a week, and I was like probably 15 at the time, but I had no support in my house at all, and so they were like, no. I'm like, great. But then they started this young composers thing, and I auditioned and I got in, and I mean it was definitely life-changing for sure to go to Tanglewood.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
But if I would have known of. And, again, this was 1987, so there was nothing, this is the height of the AIDS crisis and, all that garbage going on. But if I would have known of something like this, I would have applied. I mean, it was very, very, I would call it like, basic composition for the most part, but yeah.
I mean, it's, one of the most moving things that I've probably ever heard is actually a quote from one of Harvey Milk's In Case of Assassination speeches that I'm working on a project with, trying to work on that into a composition. But one of the ending lines is, "It's not about power, it's not about greed, it's not about personal gain, it's about giving those young people hope." And that is, just hearing that in his voice and just hearing that, it just resonates so much, and that's my North Star, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to go off of something that you said before too. If there's a way that someone will write some kind of composition, historical kind of piece, and even how do I want to word this? Tapping into German culture, it would be after World War One, before World War Two, but or maybe even before that. There was a lot of things going on there, but you know, pre that Proposition 198, and doing some kind of period piece. That
Like
and
in
then,
that actual style. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, that's, something I've actually, one of the things I actually want to work on, like actually kind of going backwards to like, actual jazz and that kind of, that conversation. Like I actually do want to do a few tribute pieces. One to, obviously, a Billy Strayhorn tribute piece. And actually I want to do, I would need to find like the right, I believe, in like the universe connecting people and all that kind of stuff, fate at the right place, right time, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just waiting for like the right time to do kind of this tribute to Julien Eltinge, who was one of the first, actually was more popular than, what was his, Charlie Chaplin, like in the early 1900s, but was a female impersonator, vaudeville performer. And so she had her own like published musics, her own ragtime songs, her own musicals, but then basically got left in time because, we have to repress everything because it didn't fit the agenda of the,
wow,
political party. Yeah. But if you look her up, like she was touring Europe, she got a dog from the Queen of England. Like it's insane.
oh
I'm
my
serious.
gosh, I didn't know this. And now
Yeah.
I'm thinking of this the historical significance. Like even, and I'm going to say this too. There's so much African American history that is suppressed. And how do you find out about this stuff? From looking on the internet now.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's such a
African
shame.
American, Asian. I mean, any of the,
Yeah.
there's so much that has been repressed. I mean, just by our education system, here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's appalling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely is. And getting back to the I Exist project too, like I could see this not only, commissioning works, but I'm just thinking ahead too, in time going into, special projects into schools, and presenting. It could be presenting a work and the historical significance of it. Because I always remember in high school, I went to a good school. I really did. The teachers were all really good. And, I could tell you, I know that because many, many people in our grade became really successful, successful people, which is awesome. But I always noticed we never got past like World War One. We never got past World War One in terms of history. I don't understand that.
Because there's that much, or because we didn't want to, like, did you go into like that much, like depth pre World War One, or you just did the normal
No, it was
Industrial Revolution and we stopped there and.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, like a little bit into World War One, and then the year's ending. We don't have time for World War Two. So I did my own research because
Yeah.
I have my father's
Yeah.
side of the family's Jewish, and there were some people that died in the camps. And so I can't find. It's very hard to find that information. And just saying this out loud too, like when Lisa Kudrow ran that show, oh gosh, that was partnered with Ancestry.com, finding about your past and finding out that she had relatives that died in the camps. I mean, that was just like,
Yeah.
that was incredible. But, I'm just saying that there's so much that we're not exposed to out of fear, It's like, remember, history repeats itself. And it's going to keep repeating if people, don't learn from the mistakes of the past and the good stuff from the past too, So it's just crazy. But and anyway, I'm thinking like for this, you're starting to commission works. It's getting more popular, and then you're able to go into maybe colleges at first, and college composition classes, and then college music programs, and then maybe some high school music programs. And yes, we have to be careful because not everybody's going to be accepting. Understand that, okay? But it's a start. But I guess the thing is that it will inspire, just like you were inspired. It will inspire the next generation of composers, of musicians,
and not even composers, just performers. And I mean, artists anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we've performed. I mean, we've performed at all like libraries and public libraries. We've actually done quite a few conservatories around the country. You name it, we've probably been in some sort of space like that. Hell, we even performed in the Richard Nixon Presidential Library, which that was
that's awesome.
For a lot of reasons, that was a fun one. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
But all jokes aside, like there's always I kid you not, after every performance, there's always someone who always waits till the very end. We play the concert, everyone claps, we do the congratulations. Okay, where the pomp and circumstance, all that stuff. And then once everyone, we settle, oh, we're gonna go meet, at the local pub for burgers and fries, whatever. I'll pack, and then we'll be like, okay, we'll pack up. We'll be there in like 5 minutes. Just give us a minute to pack up, all the saxophones, all the, clean up what, right? There's always one person at the very end who always waits till that very last, like, moment of,
oh yeah,
where they can just have a, personal, private moment. Then every time it's just how much it means to them, and, how much they never would have imagined in their life they would have sat through a performance like this. And that is every time, and it's like, this is why we do it. Even if, all, you get stuck on the subway, or you get mud on, all the, stuff that happens, like, that isn't fun with traveling, all the things that can come up, and all the stresses, and all the, just inconveniences, and all that kind of stuff. It's always that one person at the very end who's, sometimes they're young, sometimes they're old, and that, it doesn't matter what age, where they're from. There's always someone who's like, this hit me on such a level that I would have never imagined. I can't thank you enough. And we turn around and be like, well, we can't thank you enough for being here with us for that. And that's why.
Yeah, it's the impact. It's absolutely the impact. All right, awesome. So now we had no, this is great. We have the I Exist project. Now let's talk about. I want to kind of trace back, high school, right? So you had that epiphany moment. Okay, where did you go to college?
So I did my undergraduate at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and then I did my master's at the University of Kansas.
Got it. Okay. All right, and then there were. I'm not familiar, with the programs there, but classically based. So.
Both. The degrees themselves were, classical performance degrees, whatever that means now, right?
Right.
But I grew up studying with Paul Haar, doing so because he's a bilingual player. Obviously, I grew up doing both classical and jazz, and I was in the the UNL big band, and then UNL Jazz Orchestra when we recorded a couple albums on that. But I think at that point I never did double lessons, but I would sometimes, but. I grew up mostly classical. I would say we did about 70-30 classical and then jazz lessons for the foundation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then as far as even more classical goes, it's kind of further down that road I went, for whatever reason, for my junior recital, I was moved to, again, be crazy. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to perform the Franck Violin Sonata, for my junior recital. No, there's no chill, just nonchalantly. And so,
okay.
And so then, it gets, and so I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this the right way. I should take lessons with the violin professor, because if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it the right way.
Yeah,
and
wow.
So,
alto? On what?
On Barry. So I actually did the cello version it was crazy.
Oh my God. Okay.
But
is there a recording of this?
I think somewhere. I can find it, but yeah, I did that, and then, I also kind of made it, kind of one of the things that was just always instilled was there's always something you can learn from anyone. It doesn't matter if it's just your instrument. And so, like, I took a few lessons with the flute professor because I was doing a Bach flute sonata at one point. I did clarinet, like, did a clarinet lesson once or twice. Like, it's, it was a very holistic kind of learning experience. And, that's kind of what I preach to even, like, I don't teach in academia anymore, but even, like, my private students, I say, go to the flute master class if there's one at the, local university, or go to the, cello master class, because even though they don't speak the same technical language, you'll still learn something.
Yeah, that's great.
You don't know what you'll learn. And so same thing with my master's at KU. There I actually did do applied jazz lessons the entire time. And, did the counterpoint classes and fugue writing and all that stuff, because why not, but, it's, I think the more holistic and more, the more broad education, or more you just know about, can you talk to, learn what string quartets do you know, what, history of wind band, like all that kind of stuff, like it all adds to you, and that's kind of what, goes into the recipe of whatever makes you you.
Yeah, but here's the other thing too, though, finding pieces that obviously feature other instruments, and then having it worked, arranged for your own instrument is great because it expands the repertoire.
And also you're like, okay, this is crazy. Technically, this is possible, but it's like in a technical, hypothetical world, playing double stops on a violin is possible, but how do you get around it? And then how do you navigate that? And okay, sure, an altissimo Q sharp is, we all know it's theoretically possible because you just, but how do you actually do it? And just figuring out how to do it after, years and years of struggle, like that's, it just adds to, your artistic tool belt of stuff.
Okay, so we're going to go down this rabbit hole for a second. Okay, so double stops, right? How do you navigate that? What do you do? I mean, I can't even imagine what you would do to deal with that.
Well, I mean, so luckily, like, so sometimes, like, even violinists, like, like studying with a violinist, like, they even talk about this sometimes. If it's a pure double stop, yes, that is technically possible, and they will play the two notes at the same time, and you get a pure dyad, right? But, like, if you look at, like, the Bach fugues or anything, the Tchaikovsky concerto, any of the big pieces that have the quadruple or even triple stops, half the time, if you actually listen, they'll break it, where they'll play bottom two and then top two, right, or they'll do bottom note, top two. Or they'll do bottom two, top note, or if you notice, they don't actually play rarely all three, or especially all four at the same time, because they can't.
Right.
But as wind players, we look at it and we're like, okay, there's four notes. How do we do this? But then if you actually listen, there actually is a breaking regardless, and so you can actually follow that kind of more authentically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so it's like a a quick.
Arpeggiato or something.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes, I've kind of gone down the, the multiphonic, I call it Pandora's box of darkness, that kind of stuff. There are a very few amount of, like, multiphonics that are true dyads that you can actually do, that you can actually perform, that are pure intervals, mostly fourths and fifths, but you can get pure intervals. And, like, even on, like the Tyler Harrison's concerto, this kind of all ties together. So the piece is kind of, it's all attacca. It's about 20-25 minutes long, and there's three different cadenzas in it. It was kind of modeled after a violin concerto in a sense, like same kind of power. And so the first concerto, the first cadenza and all the big violin concerti, the Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Beethoven, you name it, the first one is always the big one, and then they do mini ones as they go along, right? And so the first one Tyler wrote, and I was like, you know what, if we're doing this, we're going to do this, we're going to go big or go home. I'm going to add, however much I add, I'm going to contribute to the first cadenza and make it longer. So it ended up being like 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow.
A lot of it is slow melodics, like a lot of it's slow melody, so there's still the pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
But, kind of even, and there's like at the very end of it, it is 100% violin, like arpeggio, like if you listen to Mendelssohn Concerto, it is exactly that. But there's like one moment in the middle where I'm doing like the melody again for like the second or third time, and I actually purposely crack I'm playing it like on low B flat and like low B flat to like F, and I'm purposely like cracking the octave so it almost sounds like it's like two octaves at once. So it's almost,
Wow.
I mean, obviously you can't get the two octaves perfect at the same time, but we all know like that sound like when you crack the octave, right? And you get like a glimmer of like the, everyone's first time they play G, right? We
Right.
always get the half G on top, right?
Yeah.
But what if we did it on purpose? And so that's kind of where I went with that, to try and allude to actually like as close as we could get to pure octaves without singing or overdubbing or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, so let me ask you about this then. When it came
Yeah.
to creating the cadenzas, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you were composing them. Were you? How were you composing them? Were you just like kind of playing around,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, and then writing it down, or?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how. I mean, I have composed stuff, but that's kind of like the imposter syndrome type thing in the back, so I don't do it as often as I could or should, or who knows, whatever. But for me, like I had the full music, the full concerto, and I was and then that's when I was like, okay, I want to add, like, I want to contribute to this. We talked about it, and then after living with the piece for a while, then I started just like kind of improvising with it, like in the cadenza area of like, okay, what would kind of fit, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
then it's kind of a back and forth between, okay, improvisation, okay, let's freeze, let's go back on that, do we like that, do we not, like, how does it feel in context, and then kind of back and forth between like the intellectual, I mean, this is where it should go versus, okay, this is the improvisatory where it wants it to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking too, would you say also that having some of that jazz background, really?
I mean, honestly, probably yes. I mean, be
Yeah.
able to just improvise and just, okay, give me a key center and just go. Like, it doesn't have to be the world's greatest thing, but you're improvising, you're making something out of thin air, and the sense of like fearlessness of this could be great, this could be not. Who knows? Just go.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'm also thinking too, having those lessons with Paul, but also some of the other studies that you've had, I'm sure that informed your
Oh,
choices.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and being, harmonically aware of, I mean, that's a big thing as well. Like, just harmonically aware of where things go and how you can, tie things together. And, I mean, this is kind of one of my soapbox kind of speeches. Like when I have a student who wants to do classical and like they want to do jazz lessons, with, or talk about jazz stuff. And they kind of start talking about how jazz theory is completely different, and it's, the complete differences. And I stop on point blank. I'm like, look, yes, there's so many differences, but there's so many things that are similar that, the jazz education sometimes focuses on those, like separating, church and state, so to speak, musically speaking, from each other, where there's a lot more in the middle, where, case in point, a Mozartian C major scale is the exact same as a bebop C major scale. It's just how it's inflected and how it navigates both where they're going and where they're coming from.
It's interesting. I had Pete Chrisley on the previous episode, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, jazz stole from classical." Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes total sense,
yeah.
and absolutely, there's no question about that.
And like, so, I try and blend, I mean, be more economical with that, where everything, have that knowledge actually add to itself, not you have to go off, and you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
completely separate and relearn everything. No, use what you know. A G major scale is the same as a G major scale, it's just a different context. And so you have to be aware of that and know how the context and the implications, but that G major scale you learned in 5th grade band is the exact same scale.
Yeah, it's mostly, honestly, it's mostly being more harmonically aware of what's going on. That's the thing, and the fault, here's my soapbox, here's the fault with, when we get written parts for us, whether it's in band, whether it's a concerto, not for nothing, with classical music, like, why not write down the chords? Right? Why not write down the chord symbols?
Yeah.
Because there's that big gap that creates. And the thing is, with a lot of now, and it's not even a question of like fusion or anything like that, but it's more of the avant-garde. A lot more works now, classical works, are demanding saxophone players improvise.
Exactly.
and it's given them panic attacks because they never did this before, you know, and they weren't set up for success.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I remember this was a few years ago. Like, there was a orchestra gig in Omaha where I was playing with the Temptations, and that book it's a big band book with orchestra. And guess what? You get it the day or two before, and you show up, and this is how much preparation they give you. You're reading through the show, and they're like, "You stand up solo now." That's all you get.
Wow! Oh my gosh!
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and just being able, like, was it the world's greatest thing since sliced bread? Probably not. But did I make a mockery of myself? No. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to hold my own, and like, I even, you know, the fact that they're like, "You're okay," and like, "You can stay." I will wear that badge of honor, and I will take that, and I will, you know what, that is good enough for me. you know what I mean? If the Temptations say that I'm good, that it was good enough for them, and that do it again, sounds great, I'm happy.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Here's the thing with that though. You had somewhat of a background, so you could handle that, right? How many
allegedly? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, think about it. Most people don't have that kind of background, and can you imagine? Right? Then they would have let them go.
Oh, you would have been instantly cut.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's through no fault of their own either.
No, I mean, it's just, you know, but, you know, again, show business is that, and it's, you know, it's insane.
No, it is.
Yeah.
For certain. But, okay, so, you know what? This is what I'd like to do. I'm going to share my screen. And this is a clip that you put up. Let me just make sure I share the sound here. Yeah. This is a clip that you put up on your Facebook in your profile over here. And this is from the Tyler Harrison Soprano Saxophone Concerto. And so before we play part of this, we have to talk about your equipment because, oh my God, the massive sound that you have. I'm not kidding. Like is it a Yanagasawa?
Yeah, it's a Yanagasawa. It's their 20 series, so it's the bronze body.
Okay.
And you know, I kind of make the running joke of how many precious metals can we throw on one instrument, but it's the solid silver neck with a bronze body with, you know, the rose gold ligature, blah 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 blah, and then the bell is actually brass because I had it extended and added a low A to it.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm thinking that looks longer. Oh wow!
So it actually has it has a low A, same key work as like a Barry does with that, where it's operated by your left thumb. Same thing.
Wow. Okay. Okay, and all right, then that makes sense. Then, all right, then mouthpiece and reeds.
So the mouthpiece is the Bakun, the TM Vocalese, and then the reed setup. I actually, you know, this is kind of one of my isms. I actually grew up using clarinet reeds on soprano saxophone. And so it's actually a European Legere, like the European cut Legere.
Okay, that's, you know, it's interesting that that you use let me just write this down. That you use clarinet reeds because a lot of times, you know, like a lot of times there are alto saxophone players that are going to use tenor sax reeds. They're going to use the bigger reeds on that, you know, and I tried that for a little bit. I actually liked it, but then it just got a little bit hard with some of the higher notes and whatnot. But
yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, I always grew up on it. So, like, honestly, for me, like, putting a soprano saxophone reed on a soprano saxophone mouthpiece just never felt 100% right, just because I've just always used clarinet reeds because that's just what I was told. And, you know, and then, you know, eventually it became okay, these actually respond better, and, like, developing the, you know, my own choice and, like, my own what I like. But I always gravitate back to the clarinet reeds.
That's really cool. That's awesome. All right, well, let's take a listen to this. And for those of you that are listening to the audio version, I'm going to encourage you also to check out this video of this podcast as well. All right, so let's give this a go over here. good Lord. You circular breathe through that entire thing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And for those people, can you just explain like circular breathing?
In short, basically you're obviously like you use your lungs to the air in your lungs to produce the sound on like, you know, whatever your wind instrument is, and obviously we have a finite amount of that. And so circular breathing is you're cheating in a way where you, as you're blowing out with your lungs, you train your mouth to actually push out air from stored in your lips like you're a chipmunk kind of, or in your cheeks like you're a chipmunk, and then you breathe in through your nose, so you kind of replenish. You're not doing both at the same time, so it's not like an infinite supply, but you're giving the illusion that you just have an oxygen tank hooked up to you where you actually replenish your supply through your nose, and then you have to switch back to your lung air and then refill your cheek air, and then it's back and forth of that to get through whatever you have to get through.
Yeah, and you know it's so interesting too because, well, here's the thing. Like everybody knows I sneeze my head off every day. These allergies, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you're like me, where you're like constantly, you know, like I should be investing in puffs, tissues. Oh
no, there is no way. There is no way I could do that during allergy season. Like that is no. Like that is no. But yeah, no, allergies. Like the second you're congested, it's game over.
Which is my life. Which is ridiculous. But I'm watching this, and that's why I'm going to encourage people, if you're listening to the audio, thank you, but watch the video and, you know, watch this portion, and you're going to be like, is he breathing? Oh, he's circular breathing. Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And it's not only just the circular breathing, it was constant. You know, like, so this isn't in you know, like in a wind ensemble, right? And so like some of the clarinet players are kind of looking at you, but they're not like, I don't know if they're appreciating the full scope of everything that you just did, you know, in that performance. Because that is not easy. That is not easy. And then the start of that too, with that screaming high note.
Yeah, thank you. I mean so that one's that goes up to C sharp. The whole concerto there's one F sharp like above that.
Wow.
But so like that clip, that was the second cadenza, so that was about the halfway mark, and so there's probably like this was just the, you know, the whole collaboration with Tyler, like he talked about like in the program notes, and it's true. He's like, I would ask Nick, and he'd be like, yeah. He says yes when anyone would say no, and he was like, how's the third cadenza after this one to tie the movements together? I'm like, at this point, why not? Like, I'm already, you know what I mean? Like, it's at this point, why not? Like, what's one more, you know? But the one after that is a lot more chill. That one's like the slow melodic one. But like even on that first one, you can hear at the end of the cadenza, like those arpeggio rolls, like those were very much voiced like the violin, like from, you know, just how a violinist would do it.
Yeah, and okay. Now this is interesting. I want to get back to altissimo on soprano, all right? Because here's the thing when it comes to this. You know, soprano tends to be a very high-pitched sound anyway. And the way that you played that, in fact, I'm going to do this again. Just bear with me. Okay, I want to share the sound and hit this again. It wasn't, I'm going to say it wasn't offensive. You know what I mean? Like sometimes,
I know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to negate anybody, you know, doing this. It is really hard to get a beautiful sound, I feel. This is my own personal opinion.
No, I agree with it.
In altissimo, for soprano. Yeah. So, like, when you did this, I'm going to play this from the top again. I know everybody's going to appreciate this, too, because it was just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, C sharp, C sharp, C, B flat, A flats. Yeah, I mean, it's... Yeah.
All right, so we've got to talk about, because people are gonna want to know, you know, like, what have you done? What have you done? No, what have you done? What have you done to be able to have that kind of crazy technique on a soprano, nonetheless?
I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it and be like, you know, it's just a ton of practice, but it has been. I cannot underscore how much like practice has gone over the years to be able to just have that level of like control and just develop that. I mean, and I know this sounds, you know, cliche, and everyone's like, oh, eat your fruits and vegetables, practice your scales, do your overtones, all that kind of stuff, but it's practice your scales, do your overtones, do your, you know, practice flute, like, you know, easy, you know, air quotes, easy flute etudes that, they'll have notes that we consider altissimo, like in their in their pieces, and that it's not anything special. It's just, oh, they're playing B flat. Okay, next. Like, it's not a big deal, and developing, and I think that's when I do a lot of like the master classes and workshops with like, advanced students, and they were like, okay, how do you do altissimo? How do I play this? Blah, blah, blah. I actually pull out, one of my favorite books is like the De Merseman, like 50 etudes for flute.
Okay.
And I pull them out and I'm like, okay, read number 1 or number 2. Because it's a beautiful tonal, melody from like, 1860, 1870s or so. And the last note is a G. That's it. It's bum, 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 beep, bum, bum. That's it. And you know what? That, no one actually, correct me if I'm wrong, rarely do, and I'm even guilty of this. As saxophonists, we never start with that as altissimo. The first altissimo thing we jump to is either the end of Ibert, that's our first scale, or we jump, to Albright, or we just jump right in. We don't actually spend time refining it and actually making it
musical.
Yeah, I don't want to say musical because people make it, it's musical, but we don't treat it the same way like we learned, like Rubenk Book 1. Like, we don't treat altissimo like that. We just jump right in and...
Well, we do exercises. That's what we do.
But we don't learn it like how we learned the rest of the range. We just jump into like, okay, we're going from 0 to 100 and like that, versus, how many years did we take learning how to play just a concert B flat scale in middle school, high school band?
Right. Okay.
And the context of that is it's, whole notes or half notes, not... You're not jumping into playing, the Tchaikovsky 5 is not your first incident. You know what I mean? Like, the first time I hand you a trumpet or piccolo trumpet, that's not the first thing that you tried.
Yeah, but it's even more than that, though. There's a couple things involved in here. Like, we'll get the Top Tones book. We'll start working through that. But here's the other aspect of this, too. And I remember my trumpet teacher, Vince, saying this. And Gerald Albright says this, too. Play music up there. You play simple songs up there. You play music up there. That's how you're going to figure this out,
And
but
that's
in addition to those exercises, yeah.
And that's I think it's safe to say that's everyone's goal, is to play music up there, not just whatever
exercise.
Yeah, exactly. And so the other part of that is I kind of started going off that deep end, no pun intended, like in COVID and whatnot. And I will also say for everyone, like I mean this genuinely and seriously, when anyone asks like, okay, how long does this take? I ask, do you have a partner or a roommate or spouse or a significant other, whatever? And they're like, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'm like, okay, well, when you do, get a soundproof office, because that is the only way marital bliss, you can have the time to it's rough. Like, the first few years is rough, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And
yeah. But also, don't forget the dogs.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many dogs I've made deaf.
Absolutely. Oh no, my dog Skylar, he will cry whenever I practice. He runs to the basement. Like, I'm on. Yeah, no, he runs, and it's horrible. Like, if there's a storm or something, he will choose, and I'm practicing. He will choose to sit by me instead of the storm. I'm like, buddy, you hate this. This is like killing you. Go. And he's like, Dad. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's tough stuff, but. Wow, that performance, that really, and again, okay, the Tyler Harrison Concerto, which album is that on?
So that's not on any yet. I mean, I'm recording it at the end of June with the Eastern Wind Symphony.
Okay.
So in about 2 weeks from when we're recording it today. So at the end of June, I'll be in New Jersey, and we're recording it for their album, because the whole piece was commissioned for their 30th anniversary celebration, and so they're doing that along with a few other really important pieces for the ensemble. But saying that it's been like a dream come true, and like pinch me so many times with even that piece, and that this is just the beginning of the piece, like, because we were fortunate to do a consortium model with it, and we have I believe 11 ensembles and directors on it, and so there's booked performances all over the country for the next year with it, and so it's just going to be really amazing seeing what the life of this piece is to come,
Yeah. All right. Now, all right, I've got a bunch of questions when it comes to this. Okay. I'm going to go two ways with this. Preparing. working on this piece. Talk to me about your practice routine to get that amazing sound, but also that insane technique. What do you practice?
I mean,
What vitamins are you taking?
I, well, like I said, with enough caffeine, anything's possible. So there's at least, my normal order at the coffee shop is a quad shot espresso tonic. So that's usually that's how we start the day.
Oh my God.
Sometimes six if it's a rough day, but but I mean, I know this is again like cliche, but I mean, part of it was okay. Yes, the finale, which is all of it. I mean, all of it is very intensely difficult, and even the non-technical stuff is musically difficult. And it's, I think this is one of those pieces that's going to start raising the bar for a long list of reasons, right?
Yeah.
But so one, it's a lot of the practice that I did was. One, when we started this project a year and a half ago, I was like, okay, I'm not going to try and be a superhero. I'm not going to say, get me the piece by January 1 of 26. I need, the finale and or the hardest parts I need by the end of summer 25. That way I at least have a year to, I'm going, you know what I mean? To at least have a chance at this. I need this stuff a year in advance for the absolute hardest stuff. Right.
Did you get okay? And
so I actually got the concerto in backwards order, more or less. I got the finale,
interesting,
and then part of the second movement, and then I think the circular breathing moment because I think when Tyler was writing it, he was like, "How long can you do this?" I'm like, theoretically 2.5 minutes." He's like, "Here's 2 minutes." I'm like,
"Wow, okay."
But just being able to, and then the first movement, which is all melodic, but it starts off the first phrase, you go from, E on the staff to you have to do a melodic altissimo C, and it has to be beautiful and it has to be sound like a violin up there
and even and full
and that's your first 20 seconds.
Okay. Did
yeah.
he give you any kind of demo recording from?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I got the MIDI recordings and we would do a lot of back and forth. When he was writing, he would write a phrase or two or even maybe a page of music, send it to me, and I would play it back and sight reading and okay, this is possible. This is technically we would it was very collaborative the whole way. There was never one moment where it was just okay, here's what you're playing, great, thanks. It was, what do you think of this? Any changes? Any how does this fit? How's it feel?
Great.
And then also, just from the scope of the work, it's a marathon, and so you have to be able to actually physically put out that energy, just the energy alone, just get through a 20-minute nonstop performance of the highest intensity stuff. So that's even, that goes into, okay, you actually have to physically do something, either if it's a physical routine like treadmill or working out or something. I definitely believe there's a physical, a physicality shape to that, because it's just that relentless to the body.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking too when it came to that as well. Again, going back to when you first started playing the saxophone, I need to hear it first. And so I was just thinking, I know for me, classical music, that's how I train myself as well. So
there was moments where I would hear the case in point. I mean, I mean, if you really want to take a moment to pause everything, I can pull up the video on my phone and we can figure out the technology for that. But there was a moment where, in the finale, where, I kid you not, there's a moment where you're the soprano saxophone's doing basically shredding scales up and down, minor second, chromatic scales, whatnot, with nothing but a flexitone choir in the back, 20 flexitones.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we were just talking about this. We found a way. He was able to message me on Facebook. So what I'm going to do, talk to me as I'm sharing this. So what exactly are we hearing over here?
So, I mean, we were talking about not hearing it, until, kind of talking about hearing the piece or whatnot. So this section, again, there's 20 flexitones, in the whole ensemble. We had to get them, we bought some from Sweetwater. Directors brought some. It was as silly as it sounds, it actually is really cool. But even the director and I, leading up to the first rehearsal, which didn't happen about until it was like the middle of April, I believe, so about a month before this performance in May. We didn't know what we were going to do with the flexitone, dueling flexitone moment, because we can all imagine how close, how opposite of this sounded like in the MIDI file, like in the actual, like the rendering on like Finale or Dorico. So this section like did not like it existed, but it did not sound anything like this because, again, the limitations of the actual like processing or the computer rendering, it wouldn't even give you a close idea of like what this actually sounds like. And so we were all had to trust Tyler with, okay, he's like, no, trust me, this is going to be like cool. Just believe me. We're like, okay, you know what? Like this is, we all, it all takes a team, and we all have to trust each other. And so we did it. And then this is what dueling flexitones sounds like.
Okay, and this isn't the third movement?
Fourth movement. Yeah. So this is in the middle of Finale.
Okay, got it. All right, let's go from here. That's awesome. That is so cool. And just the fact that he was able to think about that,
Yeah.
and envision that, but also again the crazy technique.
Yeah, that was one of those. So when I said like I needed like that passage like in near advance, that was one of them. It's like I will not do this, like, and that was the easy version. Like originally, we were trying to do like 6 30-second notes, and that's only 16 sextuplets. And I was like, there's no way in hell that could be that long for 30-second notes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, okay, let's go back
Yeah.
to when you first got this and first steps working on it.
Slow. Just the painfully slow practicing and like.
At like 48 or something?
Oh yeah, metronome with at the eighth note level, just mapping out everything like. And I would say like because there is so much altissimo on this, like a lot of it was actually mapping out the physical. Mapping out the actual fingerings and like the physicality of it. So instead of like, okay, my generic C fingering is this, I have to go from C to, this note to, A flat and middle staff. Yes, my normal C fingering is this, but there's no way that's ergonomic and that's going to clunk things up going at 1,000,000 miles per hour. So like, how do I, make it more economical in a sense, or more ergonomic where it's less of a, you know what I mean? Like that being like very mindful of like the actual motions of it.
Yeah.
To even have a chance at playing at warp speed, because if we do, the clunky fingerings left and right, then that's just going to gum things up. And so a lot of the time on the heavily technical ones was actually just mapping out. I know it's silly, but like even just like wrist motions and stuff like that, like, okay, like I actually like literally in the part there's like, okay, rotate your wrist here or reposition your hand here so you can actually. You don't have to move like, have a beep moment and like have to move your hand like in a second. You actually give yourself like almost prepare for the notes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because again, this is, you said this a number of times, the physicality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people ever really say that out loud,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I mean, like literally, and that's something I talk about, like, and I actually put a lot of like emphasis on like in just my own like teaching and personal what is like actually being aware of like the physicality of what is your actual movements instead of just pressing the button play. It's developed to like, okay, like yes, you have to rotate your wrist for like if you're going to hit B flat with your pinky, and so like at what point do you actually like change your hand position to accommodate that, or do you do it instantly, or do you prepare for it, and like thinking of it in like that kind of way.
Yeah, because it's about efficiency. That's what it
Oh,
really is
you
about.
have to, and I will save whatever, if you can save 1 millisecond or half a second here for something like that, you have to.
Yeah. That's so cool. And you're only, first of all, you're only talking about like mapping out the fingerings. We haven't even
Wait,
talked about like the whole, playing.
yeah, that's just step one, and then how much painful time have gone into like the tuning and fine tuning of everything, like literal tuning with drones and like and then also purposely, there are times where like with the altissimo stuff, like I would purposely play out of tune because, or like have my saxophone out of tune because you don't know what you're going to get with the band. They're not a set intonation. It's not a piano. So the clarinets might be sharp today, or they might be flat.
Okay, all right. No, okay, that's interesting because I'm thinking, you're tuning to A440 for the most
But
part.
but halfway through a concert, that A is going to be A450, or I mean, probably not A445. If
Really?
they've been playing, I mean, if they've
Wow.
been playing, I mean, they've been playing. The ensemble's been playing for an hour and a half. They're going
And
to be
under the
sharp.
lights.
Yep. Oh yeah, they're going to be. Oh yeah, they're going to absolutely be sharp.
I didn't even think about that.
I mean,
Wow.
and it's no
Okay.
blame to them. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be prepared for, okay, where am I actually tuning?
Yeah. Wow.
And
Okay.
being flexible, just being flexible with the tuning because you don't know. Again, there's 60 humans, you know. At some point, nothing is, intonation is also an illusion. There is a bit of, you know what I mean? Like, there is a bit of illusion with it, even in the most perfect, kind of scenarios. So it's just being flexible and like reacting to the flexibility of like you don't know what you're gonna get. You
Yeah.
know?
And that's actually quotable.
Yeah, you do not know what you're gonna get. Like you, and that is the most honest. You know, you do not know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking this is indoors, but
Yeah.
then you think about summer concerts, right?
Oh
Outside,
yeah.
and then you have the humidity
Oh
variance,
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
or if you're in Colorado and you got altitude.
Yeah. One,
And
this is,
yeah,
thank God for Legere. Like seriously, because there is no
yeah,
way in hell. I honestly do not believe there is a way I'd be able to actually perform this piece or half the stuff I do because, again, if you're like I travel pretty frequently and like, the hour before showtime, I was having more of a just a all the like mental nerves, right? Like obviously it's a big performance. You're excited. The endorphins, all that kind of stuff. The last thing I want to do is worry about what reed I'm using because oh, hooray, it just rained and now all my reeds are useless. So I took maybe 5 minutes to pick the reed, and there was no dark thoughts about do I trust this reed or not because I knew I picked the reed. Everything after that is personal, is a user error, not mechanical issue on the instrument.
yeah, yeah. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of, Legere reeds, synthetic reeds, because you don't
Yeah,
have to worry. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
and will it make it through a 20-minute marathon
Hmm.
of of popping out altissimo left and right, and then you go back down to the lowest notes, and you're like, it's abuse. I mean, it it is hard on the reed, and I fully admit it, but that is there is no way anything but a synthetic Legere reed could handle that. I think, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, now again, I want to honor our time here too. Um, Projects coming up this year.
So, in no particular order, recording the concerto on the wind ensemble with the Eastern Wind Symphony at the end of the month, and then hopefully recording at some point within the next calendar year the second album with the I Exist project with Alex Ciulongi. And then hopefully those are kind of the big, and then obviously the tour with the concerto, and then just normal I Exist touring. That you can find all of that on nickmaysax.com. I try and keep that all up to date, but being web development, personal branding,
Yes.
HRPR, you get what I mean. Like I normally keep that up to date as much as I can, but and then as far as like releases, I have a probably sometime early spring 2027, releasing an album with my piano violin trio, Latitude 39 East Meets West. So that's going to feature music from both Western kind of tradition, so contemporary music. What else is on it? Piazzolla, and then actually Eastern, because both the violinist and the pianist, they're from the Middle East, and so there's a lot of Turkmen music on it, actually, Azerbaijani music, some from the Ukraine, and so it's kind of an amalgamation of kind of all of our kind of backgrounds. And
That's
so that's
cool.
actually going to be a really, really unique and fun album once that's out. And then the other one that just waiting for the right day and time is actually The Candidate, which is the just single album that features the Harvey Milk in case of assassination speech. That was written by Jeremy Howard Beck, and so that's deeply powerful is an understatement, and you know, I have no words for that because sometimes words just don't even encapsulate.
No,
You know.
absolutely. And so, okay, we've got your website, right? And are you on Bandcamp or anything like that? How are you selling the albums?
I mean the album. So selling. That's funny.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, yeah, no. They're on Bandcamp. They're on. You know, the UMS is on Neuma's website, so you can purchase them there. You can, obviously, I think you can purchase them on iTunes, Apple.
I think
Is that still a thing?
You know, you have to like buy the streaming. I think you have to.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I think.
I honestly don't. I mean, again, case in point, like I mean, yes, money makes the world go round, but like the goal of this or any of the projects was not to make money. So yeah, you can purchase them, and you know, you can message me directly if you want to purchase them, and I'm more than happy to ship and mail them. You know, we've mailed it all over the world and sign it and have some fun stuff with it. But yeah, no, it's available for streaming on all the major platforms. You name it, you just search it, you'll find it.
Awesome. Okay, and the socials. What's your?
They're all So they're all Nick May Sax.
Got it.
And so that is, you know, I kind of lucked into that. You know, if we talk about branding stuff, where everything is cohesive, everything matches. It's just
Smart.
Nick May Sax.
No, it's smart. It's
Yep.
smart. It's not easy to get that to work. But listen, Nick, this was awesome. You know, and I want to congratulate you on the performance and all the stuff coming up. Seriously, just such incredible playing, and this was a lot of fun. I got a lot out of this.
Thank you so much. No, this has been. Yeah, no, like I could just talk with you like all day. Like you're amazing, and I really appreciate it. Seriously.
Oh no, thank you. I could talk with you all day too. I hope someday that you get out to California, or at least try to get to the NAMM show or something like that. And,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, that is yes.
yeah, and you know if you know I know you're sponsored by Key Leaves as well as Legere too. You know, and you know, great companies, and you know if Legere is out there again or something, you're at the booth. I mean, that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Or if you find yourself in Kansas City, like,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.